Welcome back to After Hours at Blondie's. We have a very, very beautiful special guest today in the hot seat. I'm so excited for you guys to be introduced to her and fall in love with her and her music just as we have. How are you doing?
Great.
Hi, nice to see you.
Yeah, we could probably say our name. It's Mink-See.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
That's in the title, but also we've got Mink-See here. Welcome to the pod.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited.
Yes.
So I guess just to dive right in, take me back. Take me all the way back because you're obviously established, beautiful vocalist, DJ, producer, everything now. Take me all the way back to your first memory that you fell in love with music.
Yeah, so I was lucky to really grow up with a lot of music in my life, but the thing that really jump-started music at all for me was my dad took me to see Phantom of the Opera live.
Love.
I actually saw that too.
Obsessed.
Maybe
Yeah.
you were there. I think I was like 5 or 6. I was young, pretty
Yeah.
I was
young,
pretty young too, yeah.
you know, and I just kept singing Christine's operatic riffs.
Yeah.
Nonstop.
Oh my
and then
goodness.
eventually my dad put me in vocal lessons.
Amazing.
So that was definitely the moment. I also did a lot of theater growing up because of that. So that was definitely the first musical that really stuck out in my mind.
Captured your heart
Mhm.
forever. That one, honestly, Phantom of the Opera is just iconic and it will be forever.
Yeah.
And that's amazing.
I have the collectible Barbies.
Nice.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, if you remove the mask, Ken has the scars too.
Oh,
Oh,
my
cool.
gosh, so authentic.
Yeah.
Very authentic. That's amazing. So going on from there, you said you got into theater school, vocalist school, and kind of started your journey along that line. How was that?
So growing up, I was kind of always in some kind of lessons.
Mhm.
So I did private vocal lessons in classical to start, which led me to singing competitions, eventually auditioning for musicals and theater. I did the children's chorus with Vancouver Opera until I
very
aged
cool.
out. So I did that for a few years and theater for a few years and ballet, dance, all of that.
All the things. Just
Yeah.
every single creative in the theater. Did you like the performing aspect? Did you like the learning aspect of it? The community? What did you enjoy about that?
I think I love performing.
Mhm.
And I think when there's a crowd of people to interact with, that is my favorite. It doesn't really matter too much what that form is.
Mhm.
I think there's just something magical. Like I cry on my way to every single booking and show that I do. I always have high anxiety. But then as soon as that first track is playing or I start, it's I'm just with the audience and everything that I'm feeling is just going to go into that. And
Mhm.
I think it's just because I put a lot of pressure on myself because I want to always do the best performance, no matter what it is, for the people that show up.
Absolutely.
And what would you say would be the first memory that you have of okay, this is what I want to do for a living? You know, because obviously when you're young, you fall in love with it and you have these oh, I want to be a policeman, I want to be a singer, I want to blah, blah, blah. But when it just clicked and you're you know what, this is the thing that I'm going to do for my career, my passion and career, for example, you know?
Yeah, I think so. I didn't love high school.
Mhm.
I particularly hated this program or this class in grade 12. I think it was called Planning 12. And
Yeah.
part of
Career
the
and personal
program,
planning, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
part of it was you had to fill out 3 applications
Mhm.
for university.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I just was this is so stupid.
Mhm.
I don't know which direction I want to go in. I want to do all of these things.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I just had other issues with school, but I dropped out and I was I'm just going to save money and work. And eventually I got a ticket to Australia where I had some friends who were doing the work and holiday visa for a few years. So they had a house down there and I just was yeah, I'm down to just visit and travel and see you. And my friend Kai had been traveling the world for a few years before this and had this iPod, one of the ones that you can actually plug into a computer and load up.
Mhm.
And everywhere he traveled in the world, people loaded up this iPod.
Oh.
So when I decided to extend my trip and backpack all over Australia, he loaded up my iPod with all of this music, like just all of this stuff. And I just listened to it. And I discovered like high contrast, Nero, like dubstep, drum and bass, just all of these different sounds. And I fell in love particularly with the tracks that had these driving bass lines and beautiful female vocals. I always loved writing as well. Like always I have notebooks and notebooks. And I was like, oh my gosh, I write. Oh my gosh, I sing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love these. I was like, I want to do this.
Yeah.
And I think it wasn't necessarily, I want to DJ. It's like, I want to make music like this. I want to write my own music. I don't want to be auditioning for characters anymore and not fitting these or
and
singing.
like playing a part. You want to be yourself and authentic kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that was kind of when it was. Somewhere on a Greyhound bus in Australia.
Roughly what timeline was that? Like what year?
2014-ish?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
2012, 14-ish. I can't remember.
Yeah. The heyday of the bass music days.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So
Definitely.
Yeah, that was a golden age. I mean, 2014 not, but 2013 and the couple years before that was just like golden age in production, especially with like dubstep and the bass music, like you were mentioning before with Nero and all those guys. Oh my God, I would, if I had to go back to any time period, it would be 2013. Just take me back there.
Bing.
I will do that one more
Big
time.
magic.
If I can hit the redo on that button, that would be the year for sure.
That would be it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember so much about that time period too, of just like big, like orchestrated, big room, feel good. You're just in the moment in the club and you hear those songs and you relate to them so much.
Yeah.
It was such a
100%.
connection point.
especially Nero, like Alana Watson is performing and singing live. I was like, that's what I want to do.
That's right,
I want to be singing my stuff with these big bass lines.
Yeah.
Like this.
So good, yeah.
And
So
fast
good. I mean,
forward years later.
how could you not identify
No.
that? Yeah.
Right?
If
Like
you didn't,
just
I'd be
like-
worried. But you did eventually get there, and we'll get there too. But that's really interesting. Okay, so 2014, you're kind of plodding along. You kind of start your Instagram 2016-ish. Is that roundabouts when you started to come back to Canada, think about DJing, or what was that scenario like for you?
So I actually came back and I continued just working, saving up money. And then I decided to get Ableton and a little push, realize like, I don't know what I'm doing at all. This is so confusing. Like, why don't people like this? Or like, why does the audio not sound good? I really wanted to understand, and it was a lot of information. So I discovered a school and I decided to get my diploma in audio engineering production and urban beat production. And that helped a lot, really gave me a lot of technical skills. I would say this was kind of in this era in between the old school studio days where you have an SSL console. So I learned how to record to tape and do all of these things in the studio. Meanwhile, like it was becoming more and more electronic. So it was in this weird period of like transition.
You kind of had to learn both, and
we learned
all
both
of it at the same time.
Yeah, and it was then. So we had to do a certain amount of an EP like every semester. And for my final one, I needed like a name, and I came up with Mink-See because we had very strict deadlines at this school.
Yeah.
And I was trying to burn a CD and it was taking so long. And it was like 12:01 and I heard like the teacher close the door like of the office and I was like,
stress.
please, it's almost done. And then this guy looks at me and he's just like, you fucking minx. And like, how did you get your project in? And I was like, that's an interesting word. So then I kind of just played with different spellings and I just felt like it just really suited kind of like the sultry and just the feminine kind of vibes.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of how it started. So it started in school. I think I graduated in the beginning of 2015. And then I still wasn't DJing yet. So that came along a little bit differently. So while I was in school, people knew I loved Adventure Club and Zed's Dead. Those are still
Iconic.
Not gonna get arguments with me.
No, I'm in love.
Yeah, people knew that.
I will still blast it in my car if I had a car. In my car to this day.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, it hits
Yeah.
it hits different.
It does. It does. It takes you back to that time, you know?
Yeah. So when I was in school, like people knew I liked this music, and people I would meet would be like, can you just like burn me some CDs? I'll pay you. Here's like $50. Like burn me a bunch of CDs you think I'd like. I want one chill for the car. I want one on my way to work. So I just started like burning CDs and curating CDs just for like extra money.
Yeah. The mixtape chick.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool.
And then kind of what happened at this school, somebody found out like that I love Zed's Dad and Adventure Club.
Yeah.
And was like, have you met like Jimmy? Shout out Jimmy Escobar.
Yeah.
He's opened for them. Like at celebrities and blueprints. Like you should meet him. He's a year, like he's a semester ahead of you.
Yeah.
Should meet him. So I think I just walk up to him like, hey, you're Jimmy. People said I should meet you. And
Yeah.
they said you've opened for like all these artists that I love. And he's like, yeah, you should come out some night and like meet like, you know, the crew. And like, so I met the Faded crew before Faded was Faded in the Park. It was just, oh my gosh, was it like a Thursday? I think it was Thursdays or Faded Wednesdays.
It was Wednesdays.
Faded Wednesdays.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I started going, I started meeting people and people who I still know to this day and I'm still friends with.
Well, they're all working. You know, if they're still in the city, then they're still working in Faded, celebrities, Blueprint. You know, they've kind of moved along within the company, but like everybody's still around. It's such a tight-knit crew.
Yeah, so that was a fun era of time. I was definitely hungover every Friday, but like, but it was so fun, and the shows that were being brought were epic, and I just started like promoting and selling tickets and just being part of the crew. And we go to meetings and eat pizza in the underground, which is now the Village, but we'd all hang out all the time. And then
back then it was physical tickets. You go around delivering.
It's not that long ago. Come on.
Oh, it was. Oh my God, it feels like years ago.
You can still get physical. They still have, some of the promoters still do physical tickets.
Back in the day, if you were a promoter for Blueprint, you were so cool, I thought. Because I would always call up and get my tickets, and then somebody would come and meet me on the corner. And, this amazing show is going to happen. Here's some tickets and stuff. So it was an exciting thing to be a part of, Blueprint back in the day. In that era.
Yeah. So that was kind of like how I kind of started, I guess it was part of the journey. And then one day, what was Maggie's part at this time? Maggie has moved up so much in Blueprint. I don't remember what her specific role was at this time, probably on the way to talent buyer. Okay. But one day she messaged me and was like, hey, can you DJ? And I was like, well, like I can run an SSL console and like record to tape and run Ableton and do my own vocals.
Musical theater school, vocalist school,
I can
production
school. I know how to. I'm officially or whatever. Know how to use Pro Tools, all these things. So I was like,
Ableton, I got you.
I was like, well, I'm already like curating these like mixtapes.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't see like why I couldn't.
Right.
So my friend Neil Barley, shout out Neil Barley. Had me over one day and taught me how to DJ on his little mixer, and it was all music I didn't know. So that was really fun, and that was kind of my first rundown. And then shortly after, I got my own little DDJ or the SX, and just started kind of playing around and like making mixes. And then one day Maggie's like, hey, I'm gonna be throwing an all-female DJ contest.
Ooh.
Femme Fatale. Who remembers Femme Fatale?
Yeah.
So Femme Fatale started out as a contest. So we all made mixes, submitted them, and then
to Blueprint.
Okay. And then I don't think people voted. I think they had a team of people who decided who was going to actually compete. At MIA. Throwback.
MIA was one of the clubs. I was a little bit more underground. We've talked about it before, but it was kind of more of like underground music, a little bit more less mainstream. Very cool.
Not
it was
beholden to the Granville
underground
vibes.
Not bottle service, that sort of thing. No.
Although it had it, but
it did actually.
Yeah, it did,
But
anyway.
it wasn't primarily. But
Yeah. So,
that's where everybody wanted to hang
oh
out.
my gosh. So my mix got in.
Yeah.
Exciting.
So I was like, okay. So now I'm going to play at MIA.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I think there were 4, maybe 6 of us. I know that like Alex May
Mhm.
was
Yeah.
there. Awood shortly, I think, joined Femme Fatale. They joined Femme Fatale after.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Was
the initial
Sivs a part of it as
I
well?
think Sivs had another booking somewhere else, but
Okay.
was supposed to play.
Yeah.
I think.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But eventually, yeah, it became a little crew. I didn't actually win, but I got runner up.
Cool.
Yeah.
Pretty good for just starting.
Very
Not
nice.
bad.
Yeah.
Alex May got first.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But the winner was to be direct support for Toki Monster.
Nice.
But because
Cool.
I was runner up, I got to be like the first
Opener?
opener
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well.
First opener,
Yeah.
Oh, that's so
which was really
exciting.
cool. So then that was like
Yeah.
my first like official like, oh, this is actually a club.
Yeah.
And then it just sort of became a little collective, and we would switch
Yeah.
different people out. We went to like Kelowna and Kamloops, and
Was it kind of like a touring situation, or it was just kind of like a girls and women empowering women situation? Because I thought there was a lot of different kind of people associated with it as well.
Yeah,
It seemed like
it was
eventually.
really just kind of a collective of people or a brand that really brought like at the time like femme identifying artists to shows.
Mhm.
And it switched out. We'd try different people. That's how we just like discovered Awood, and and it was really cool. We did do a couple little like shows out of town, but it was mostly pretty local.
Mhm.
And I think eventually everybody sort of just branched out into their own journeys
Yeah.
as artists.
Yeah.
It seemed like a really good place for everybody to support each other and get started in their careers. And then obviously you're doing amazing. Awood's out there killing it in the game.
Yeah, Silva,
know?
yeah.
Mhm.
Everybody, Silva, yeah.
Mhm.
So that seemed like a really good launching off point and like community building endeavor.
I think at the
No.
time too, there wasn't as much as a female or femme presence in the
Mhm.
DJ scene. I think Vancouver, it's grown a lot. We have a lot more
Yeah.
now, which is
Mhm.
amazing. But at the time, that was
For
pretty
sure.
much
It was definitely was unique at that point.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. There were very few female DJs. What is that? 6-7 years ago.
Mhm.
Yeah. Very few for sure.
2017, 18. Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. It's way different now.
Mhm.
For
Yeah.
sure. Came
Yeah.
quite a bit.
No, that's
Yeah,
great.
It was great. We were doing
Yeah.
shows like monthly. It was really
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. And then that kind of branched off. Everybody went in their own directions. Speaking of your direction, though, what did you have kind of like a game plan, or you were just kind of following the gigs as they kind of went along
Yeah,
and making music at the same time too?
Yeah. So at the beginning, I was doing like making a lot of house vocals for house. So it made sense to do a lot of house, and that's when I just started, like pulling up the mic and top lining over the tracks.
Yeah.
So it definitely started that way. It's
Mhm.
also a very friendly genre to learn,
Mhm.
and I just
Yeah.
had a lot. I listened to a lot, but I liked everything. There was that just sort of seemed to be the way it went. Femme Fatale also was predominantly, we were doing house,
Mhm.
MIA, house clubs and stuff like that. So
Yeah, tech
Yeah.
house was pretty much the standard music at that period of time
yeah.
in Vancouver.
Or G House was
Yeah,
also
G-House,
big,
yeah,
all
tech
that.
house, all
Oh,
that stuff,
very.
yeah.
Yeah, we're talking
Yeah,
about
bass
Silva.
house.
Yeah.
Yeah, she
yeah,
loved
that was very
G-House.
much like the predominant underground music of the time, for sure.
100%.
Definitely.
And
Yeah.
I definitely am happy that over the years, I kind of got the bass back.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
think but I've never really been somebody that's like, I only want to play this specific genre.
Totally
Like,
feel that.
Mhm.
if I hear it and I like it, I'm like, ooh, this is so cool.
Yeah.
How can I do something cool and switch tempos in my set and bring it back? How can I test this crowd? How are they going to react to this? Sometimes I don't know.
Mhm.
But it's just fun, and I love a good bass line, good vocals, and I'm like, I don't know, if I like
Yeah.
it, I'm gonna try and play it, or
Yeah.
it's sitting there waiting for the right time that somebody's like, hey, I have a show, and I'm like, yes,
This is
Yeah.
the song.
I've got
for
some
you.
stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
so it's fun.
that was the thing is when I started playing longer sets, the ADHD in me is after one genre, you're 45 minutes in is I'm switching it. I don't care what everybody's doing right now to this genre. I'm going to switch it and we'll see how it goes, you know? And, you know, I usually find like 45 minutes, 40 minutes of, if I'm sticking to that one genre, I'm just like, it's time to switch it. You know, like it's my brain is bored of this. And especially even listening to music, if it's like the same tempo, the same energy the whole time, I'm just like, ooh, even though I love it, it's time for something else, you know?
Yeah, your brain needs a little bit of a rejig, especially like as you're doing it or listening to it.
I think especially for if you do have ADHD and you're not on medication, especially if you're not on medication, you know, you're just like, ooh, what's the next thing, right? Like, you know, you're like, I gotta get that stim somehow else, or else, you know, you start to get bored of yourself even, you know. So.
I think I just splashed drink on my face. Am I good?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I think like with ADHD as well, like I've hyper focused on so many different genres. Like I love R&B. I love bass line. I still love so much house. There's so much progressive house, melodic house.
Absolutely, yeah.
Liquid. We went to Paradise Blue and we went to Excisions Fest and we're headbanging for 3 days. Yeah, like I love that too. Like my sudden death closing set was like so much pressure, but like one of the hardest I've ever played in my entire life. Like and it's so fun. And I think that challenge, especially as a DJ, and like I do have diagnosed ADHD now. It makes, like, I love those challenges. Yeah. I'm like, ooh, okay, I don't know, that isn't something or an artist I'd usually play, but like, how can I make this work? Or cool, now I get to hyper focus and learn an entire new genre and play it.
Bring all the things that you love into this very new genre and kind of mesh and meld them into, you know, this little package that you get to deliver to the audience. Like, that's cool too. Yeah.
Definitely.
Very cool. Are you comfortable talking about your ADHD?
Yeah, we definitely can. I know I brought it up at the beginning of the year, very kind of quickly on my stories, right as I kind of freshly got an official diagnosis.
By a doctor, Interesting.
So when I was in school, I did do testing because I really struggled with certain subjects, like math was so hard. It took me so long to do my projects. Like I'd be up till midnight or later and everyone else would finish it in class. Like it was weird, but I was still wasn't stupid.
No.
I had my French 12 in grade in grade 9, but I still probably only have my math 9, to be honest. Like, so they were all over the place and like, they never really gave me a proper diagnosis. They did prescribe me Ritalin, which I did not like. I just felt like zombie soul. Yeah. I just was like, this feels weird.
It didn't fit. It didn't work. No.
So I was like, no, I'm not gonna continue that. Like, it was a lot. So I just the solution was just like, okay, she gets a little extra time on tests. But like the whole way your brain works differently. At the time, women were not diagnosed as often as men. They very much were like, this is something men have. They're going to be jumping around the room.
They always tied it into the hyperactivity. Because all they thought of was ADHD was just hyperactivity. They didn't really, I mean, the awareness of the condition nowadays over the last 5 years especially has been,
it's grown so much,
magnitudes of improvement. You know, like when you talk about the things that you were talking about, not to interrupt at all, but like it was almost as if you were talking about me in school. I'm not even kidding. Like the thing you're saying, like I needed to stay up late and extra time and I was great in this and not great in that. It was like, could be talking about me right now, you know what I mean? And it's like, and I was diagnosed as a kid when I was like, maybe 7 or 6 or 7, 8 years old. They just decided that I'd quote unquote grown out of it. You know what I mean? And then I thought I grew out of it. So I guess I'm just stupid. You know what I mean? Like
it's hard.
It's like so hard. And then like, when I look at all the research that I've done over the last 5 years and looking into all the layers of the condition that you don't normally see in mainstream, media or content or whatever, I was like, oh my God, my entire life has been completely run by this condition. And it's just me butting my head up against a wall thinking that I was stupid. You know, I was getting honor student in all the social sciences, 98 to 99% and everything, but math and physics, 50%. Like,
and they keep saying like genius is based off of those things. So therefore I must be dumb.
I must be dumb. Yeah. So, you know, it's like, so like when you hear that, it's just like, this is exactly what I had to go through.
Well, I think a lot of people can relate as well, especially in the creative field too, because you need that hyperfixation almost to get those things done and to create those things and have those things come out. But then in the social...
it's like that over passionate about the things that interest you. You know, it's like you get so deep and you dive so hard into it. And you know, like, but like these other things like math or whatever, it's like, or like doing the laundry, couldn't give two friggin' craps about, right? And it's just like, and it's just like, you know, like you get so good at all these things that you love, and but you also at the same time you get imposter syndrome, and you know, like, oh, I have to do all this other stuff or else I'm never going to be successful, and it's like marketing and accounting,
social media,
all the things you don't care about, but like are necessary if you wanted to do your passion as a career. And it's like, but I just want to do the thing. You know?
And that was a big thing I noticed about my brain even before diagnosis, because as soon as I dropped out of high school and I did some adult classes that were self-paced. You could go in anytime between a certain time frame. You could work with the teacher. You could just not go and work from home. But I would just go in on my own time, on my own sleep schedule. And I was getting like A-, high B's.
For sure,
Teaching myself.
All of a sudden, it's working because you're working with your brain.
Totally. And then the next year, they put me in a split like 30-person math class, my worst subject. And I think I went to one class or two, and I just was like, no, I'm done. So it is interesting. It does, I think it really helps to know your diagnosis, whether you choose medication or not. Because like what you said, Mason, you are so hard on yourself.
Especially if you don't know that this is a thing that's actually affecting you. You think that your brain works like everybody else's, so you compare your brain to everybody else's. Like, why is it so easy for them and it's so hard for me, or whatever, you know what I mean? It's like, it shouldn't be this hard. Like, the fact that it's this hard obviously means I have a learning disability and I'm inadequate and all these stupid things you say about yourself.
Quit before you even start, kind of thing.
It's just like, but once you get the diagnosis and know what that actually means, because it's so easy to say you have ADHD. Great. What does that mean? Well, it's not 2 or 3 things. There's like 1,000 different conditions you've never even thought of that have to do with ADHD. Like,
or identifying symptoms that you've had all along.
Like something silly, like, you know, for me, I get really irritated if I hear 2 sources of music at the same time. I thought everybody got irritated when they hear 2 sources of music at the same time. Or if it's like there's a lot of noise and you're trying to like point one out, like you could probably still do it, but it's like somewhat uncomfortable. That's actually an ADHD symptom. I had no clue. I just thought everybody felt that way. You know what I mean? You know, and it's like, you know, or like, you know, when I get like super hot about things like, you know, I thought it was just anger management issues. It's like, no, that is an ADHD thing as well. Rejection sensitivity dysphoria, these kind of things. Like, it's all these things are like, wow, I had no idea.
Yeah.
And you just go down this rabbit hole. You're like, yep, that was me. That was me. Oh my God, I am ADHD.
I'm not stupid.
Yeah. You just have a different brain. You were going to ask something about what were things I noticed.
So what were the kind of those things that you identified with, those symptoms that you could really explain and then be able to put a solution
back on the journey? Well, definitely dyscalculia, I believe is the word. That is struggles with math.
Okay.
So struggling with math was a big one. I definitely struggled with reading. Not that I couldn't read, but that I would start thinking about other things and have to reread the chapter so many times.
For sure.
Studying for tests to the point of like, I know everything. And then immediately the next day when I do those tests, that memory is not retained. Those things are not retained, which is, you know, really hard on you. And I know brought issues into home life because, you know, you're like, what? Like, what's going on? Like, we studied all the, and you're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't
your parents
know.
are looking for an answer and they're demanding it from you, but you don't even know. At
You
that
don't
point.
know. You can't explain. You're like,
No.
I don't know. I just
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know. As soon as I'm there, I don't know. So that was a big one. Definitely, I didn't realize like all these like racing thoughts and a lot of the depression and even suicidal thoughts that I encountered were very related.
Mhm.
So now, for example, I still get sad.
Mhm.
I still have feelings. I still get anxious.
Mhm.
But there is usually a reason now.
Mhm.
I'm like, I'm on my way to a show or like my USB crashed or something.
Yeah.
You know, something
Yeah.
happened.
Real
Something
stressful things. Yeah.
Yeah.
crazy, you know, real like I usually know, or there's just a lot of things and I know, okay, there's a lot of things.
Yeah.
When I'm not on medication, or even if I miss a day of medication, after a 24-hour point, I will notice this like impending doom where I'm like, I don't want to be alive.
Mhm.
I don't know why I don't want to be alive, but I just, it's
There's
weird.
just
There's
this
no
thing.
reason.
Yeah,
Mhm.
no
For it.
motivation to
interesting.
live. Like I don't even want to get out of bed. I don't even want to talk to. I don't want to even eat.
No.
Like,
Mhm.
I'd rather just suffocate myself in this pillow.
Yeah,
Just
and
like-
Yeah.
I
That's
think
very
I just
serious.
kind of dealt with it. I just was
Mhm.
like, this is just how I am.
Mhm.
Was it kind of like cyclical kind of thing? Like those emotions would come and go, and then once you got on the medication, like do you feel yourself kind of like even out, and it's kind of like an even keel, or?
It definitely has. Like, I think
Yeah.
anyone who's ever been my friend before this year even
Mhm.
probably knows my mouth gets me in trouble all the time. I
Mhm.
always would be speaking my opinion. I don't agree with the rules. I'm going to tell you. I don't like what you're doing. I'm going to tell you. I think
Mhm.
someone you're working with is an asshole. I'm going to tell you. And I'm don't really think, this is how I think.
Mhm.
Why would I mask what I'm thinking?
Mhm.
So I've always been like that for sure. And
Mhm.
definitely emotionally dysregulated
Mhm.
and struggle. Like I've cut so many people off. Maybe a lot of them did deserve it. Maybe some of them didn't. And it was just the
Yeah.
fact that my brain
Mhm.
was like, this is like life or death right now. And
just the chaos, like
that
trying to manage
impulsivity
that.
of making decisions in the moment.
Mhm.
I think also it's affected a lot of friendships,
Mhm.
not because I don't love the people,
Mhm.
but because I straight up probably forgot they existed.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that sounds really, really
It's
bad.
a very
That's very-
common thing. It's a
Absolutely
very
ADHD symptom
out
for
of
sure.
sight, out of mind. You know, I had a boyfriend one time, just to go on a little tangent. And I literally said to him, I'm like, it's not that I don't text you back. It's I literally forgot you existed. I'm so sorry. How are you doing?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Or not a boyfriend per se. That sounds very dramatic. But a guy I was dating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he just didn't understand. It's like the rock in front of you. If you can't see the rock, it doesn't exist, you know?
Yeah. That's a very ADHD related symptom
It
for
truly
sure.
is.
Totally.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think because you kind of really form to the people that you're around as well.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So you make a new friend, like you become so close with them so fast, and all of these friendships are genuine. I genuinely loved all of these people, but I
Mhm.
can definitely see now that I've like been medicated. I got medicated in January, so we're
Mhm.
getting close to a year now. I can look back and see, like, I can see why that person doesn't want to be my friend, because they feel like we got super, super close.
And then you.
And then I just
Ghosted.
didn't text back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that
Or
happens.
you just things
Yeah.
happen, or I'm just so caught up in my own head and depression or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes harder. Like
Mhm.
I still have that now. There's definitely people where I'm like, oh no, like, how do I
Yeah.
just text back a month later and be like, I've been thinking about texting you back every single day.
A month later,
You
more like
know,
a year
yeah.
later.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
kidding, right?
But like, it's
Yeah,
still,
Wow.
it's like a threshold, I think, medication as well. Like I still very much have to work on my skills
Totally.
daily, but it definitely, it's
It's
almost,
a new tool. It gives you a tool that helps. You know, it's like instead of like building the thing without any tools, or building the thing
Yeah.
with the right tools, but you still have to build it.
yeah.
You still have to do the work.
It's like a
Yeah.
compressor, right? So like it made, before anything above this thing, whether it's
Yeah.
grocery shopping or going to an appointment,
Yeah.
it's going to overwhelm me, make me have a crazy breakdown.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like, okay, I can handle all of these things here, but I'm
Yeah.
still a human. Okay, cool. Like
Yeah.
an
Now
animal
you
dad
have-
on TV, I'm crying. You know what I mean? You can
Step
still
forward.
deal with it, or,
Yeah.
things happen, but it's definitely it definitely, for me, has been really great.
Mhm.
I don't think, everybody has different opinions on medication. I think I definitely needed it. And I think a big reason why I kind of posted that story in the beginning, I was so excited, you know, ADHD, we talk about it in social media all the time.
Yeah.
I was really excited, but then realizing that so many issues in my life, like relationships, jobs, friendships, just even trying to finish my own projects, like showering, going to the grocery store, driving, like all of these things could have been starting to like
heal,
progress if I decided to do medication sooner. So I think it was a very emotional thing and very hard to just bring up on a 60-second
Instagram
story or a post because this is something that has affected my entire life. And, you know, even with food, I did not realize that I binged ate for dopamine. I still love sweets and sugar. We know that. But now, like, I can have, like, one or two, like, a donut and I'm good. Whereas
you don't
before,
need, like, 4 or 6 or whatever.
I don't need to have, like, a dozen Krispy Kreme in one night. Like, I would do that. Like, I was just, but I didn't think that. I just thought, oh my gosh, I just am known for having this big appetite, not realizing, actually,
sugar,
I'm just
sugar
craving
girl.
dopamine and trying to chase after it.
I am binge eating. I did not realize that. So then all of a sudden my relationship with food was changing and I'm not eating for dopamine anymore. And that's weird when you thought that that was genuinely a part of your personality.
That's totally changing.
It's weird.
Like your whole entire life is almost like compartmentalized into different things. And then looking back with the lens of the ADHD diagnosis, you're like, I can see that so much more clear now. And it kind of all makes sense. And then you kind of have to reevaluate how you want to move forward with that.
Yeah.
You know?
I think it definitely teaches boundaries now that you hope people will respect. Like, I know if I start to feel like I'm going to be overwhelmed, like I will try and tell people or it's not an excuse, but you start to learn those symptoms of those things that you're feeling, hopefully, before you do lash out at somebody.
Yeah, you can communicate because you can now put like you can explain the feeling and the reason, and then people who don't have experience with that condition can then understand why you might be having some sort of issue or feeling or whatever about a situation. Before you couldn't express it. You're just like, I don't know.
This is how I feel, and you need to get it up and out.
Yeah, now you can say, well, this is something that I deal with because of this, this, and this. And, you know, I just need this, this, and this in order to get back to where I need to be. You can just say that, and people, you know, even if they can't relate, they can at least understand. And it's just, you know, the amount that you're able to communicate once you have the education on your own self and why you are experiencing these things, it just makes a huge difference in how you communicate with people and you know, how they can, I don't want to say deal, but how they can
approach
you know,
as well, too,
just understand what you're going through, you know what I mean? And in a way that, you know, people who don't have that condition, you know, might not understand, you know?
Yeah.
Especially like, I can think of like, you know, I don't have a regular job anymore, but when I did, like, I didn't know I had ADHD, and it's just like, you know, my last boss was so great. He's like unbelievable, like probably the best human being, you know, you could possibly have as like a mentor, as a boss, as like a leader. And he gave me so many chances to like try to excel at this job. And like, you know, I just, you know, when we're in meetings, we're discussing ideas and problem solving. And it's like, I come up with all these, you know, intelligent solutions, yada, yada, yada. But then we go back to my desk and try to do the mundane stuff I'm supposed to do, and just, I'll get to it when I get to it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Doesn't quite stick
you know,
the way
like,
that
you know,
somebody who doesn't have ADHD could implement those right away.
Yeah, I show up at my job at 9 o'clock, and I've got like stuff to do between 9 and 5 o'clock, but I won't touch it until 11:30 because I just literally, my brain will not want to even open the email. Yeah. You know, so but then from between 11:30 and like whatever, 2 o'clock, I crush 4 hours worth of work. And then if there's anything that comes up after 2:30, can't be
Forget
bothered.
about it.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's just
Yeah.
like, but that's not how it works. The job
Yeah.
requires you to be on at this point and at this
And
point. You know?
consistently working through the day, which is
Yeah.
just not
It's
something
just,
ADHD
how
people.
can I explain it? I don't
Yeah.
know. Can't explain it.
It's hard. And
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
weird experience with a lot of like normal jobs as well. Like I
Yeah.
start out, I'm so hyper focused.
Yeah.
I'm like, they're like, wow, this girl's
Superstar.
gonna be like,
Selling.
Yeah.
she's, and
Yeah.
then eventually you start to get bored
Yeah.
and you're not challenged anymore. And then you start to be the one that's, you're even more late and you're
Yeah.
just distracted or like
Absolutely.
They become worried about you.
you do get overwhelmed and you have this breakdown and you don't have a reason for it and they just don't
Mhm.
see it the same like
Yeah.
and you don't know what's going on now. At least if that happened, I'd be like, no, my I was at a capacity and
Yeah.
I had to remove myself from the situation.
Mhm.
But they just see that as like you just left a situation or
Yeah.
You just left the
Yeah.
office.
Yeah, if you
You
don't have an
can't just leave the
explanation.
office, or
Yeah,
you
like-
do dopamine seeking behaviors almost in like self-sabotage way. I've seen that a lot, in some friends where they're working at a job and then they act out because they're seeking that rush and that adrenaline. I've definitely heard
Yeah.
of people who do that. It's just very common. I think a lot of people can relate to that who aren't diagnosed with ADHD to kind
Yeah.
of
I think that's
see
a
little
yeah.
signs,
Yeah, I mean
you
it's
know?
it's a lot of the things that we're talking about. People will be like, like I didn't know that was a thing that had to do with it.
Mhm.
And we're only touching on like the tip of the iceberg, but the common knowledge on what ADHD is completely different from what it actually is in day to day.
Mhm.
The 6-year-old that can't stay still in their seat is what everybody thinks ADHD is when you're 6 and when you're 60, but
Yeah.
it's not. It's not
No,
the same.
it presents two different ways.
And then
Yeah.
and the thing is you can explain hyperactivity as if you think it's ADHD is hyperactivity, then they think that people with a lot of energy have ADHD. That's not how it works.
Mhm.
If you're hyperactive as a child, it's not because you have more energy than the other child. It's because you are constantly looking for stimulation, and that manifests in you not being able to sit still
Mhm.
because you're trying to get stimulation. So I
Yeah.
need to get stimulation by being over here. And I'm going to do it over there. And then I'm going to jump up on the table over here. And then I'm going to grab this toy over there. And then I'm going to pull this girl's hair over here. That's not because
And
you have
then-
excess energy. It's because you're trying to not,
You're
you're trying to
craving
you're
that
trying to get
so
your brain to the
much.
normal level of
Yeah.
dopamine.
Yeah.
It's just like,
And then as a girl, I feel like we're totally different in the fact that we daydream, we drift off, our racing thoughts,
Yeah.
all
not
those
even
kinds
suicide,
of
but it's like
yeah.
the amount of self-doubt that like you can't
I
compartmentalize.
got this tattoo when I was probably 18 and
Yeah.
it literally says no self-doubt. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, so I've had imposter syndrome my whole life.
Your whole friggin' life, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, why can't I just listen to it? It's on my arm. I think it's for me, I was always doodling. I love notebooks. I always have notebooks out and like, you do stim a different way, but especially I'm sure this is either any identifying gender, but you're so easily influenced by other people. Like somebody talks to you, all of a sudden you're going to get in trouble for talking in class. Even if
Yeah.
you didn't want to talk, you just are you're so, you are
react,
easily
yeah.
distracted
Yeah.
and not there's somebody with a, something new and attention wanting to pass you. No, you're getting in trouble. And like so many times, like people will be like, oh my gosh, are you even paying attention? You've got drawings all around your notes. And I'm like, that's how
This is how I pay attention.
I pay attention.
Yeah.
I was on a little trip with my brother and I was like, hold on, I need to take a little business call. So I grabbed like the hotel note paper and then he walks by later at the end and he's like, why are there hearts all over it?
Yeah.
And I was like, because I needed to pay attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
I need to do something
Yeah.
physical so that my brain connects.
100%.
It's just a
that's
matter of like,
interesting.
if you're trying to like just blinders on one thing, your brain just is like, but if you've got the one thing and the other thing, now your brain's like, okay, I've got enough things.
Mm-hmm.
I can do both of these
Yeah.
terribly, but better than not at all. You know what I mean?
But I
It's
Totally.
totally both all at the same time.
Because you're,
Yeah.
even though
Yeah.
you're not necessarily attentive to the thing that you're supposed to be attentive to,
Yeah.
your brain is still always going.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Very, very fast,
It's picking up
especially if you're
things.
not on medication. And
Mhm.
like, I've been listening to a lot of different like podcasts and reading and
Mhm.
like YouTubes about it. And I think my favorite quote that I heard recently, I don't remember who it was, but he was like, ADHD people do not fall asleep. Like they
Mm.
pass out.
Mhm.
So you
Yeah.
so you have to ignore all the typical bedtime rules.
Yeah.
You need something to keep your brain busy until you literally drop.
Yeah, that's why you watch TV or you listen to something until you
read something.
Unless you're so exhausted that like
you just fall asleep naturally.
Again, pass out. But
So
you're passing out simply because you're just so exhausted.
Yeah, because if not, like I will be up for 3 hours.
Yeah.
My mind spinning and spiraling and telling me everyone hates, like just these things that just again like that impending doom of depression, but the anxiety version, or maybe the depression will come too sometimes. Who knows? It's the brain can be so, your brain is moving so fast, and that's what's so frustrating about not knowing when like your diagnosis, because your brain can have all these ideas, you have all these things you genuinely want to do, but you're like in molasses and you just can't.
No.
And it's so frustrating. And haters say it's procrastination and laziness. And that's another big reason it's so hard to discuss ADHD publicly, especially if you go on TikTok. There's like so many people who are just haters.
And the amount of people that are like, everybody has a little ADHD. It's just like, I'm just going to rip your head.
Every single person in the world is going to relate to some kind of trait of any disability or mental health issue. It's on the same spectrum as autism. Yeah, I definitely relate to a lot of traits in autism, but I don't have autism or diagnosed autism, who knows? But like you're going to relate to traits, and people are going to think, oh yeah, I feel that too. And it's like, yes, you're going to relate to traits, but just because you relate to traits has this
all these different things that all combine into one, that you can look back at your life and be like, this is why I didn't feel like everybody else. I couldn't do everything like everybody else can.
Yeah.
You know, that full encompassing all these different things. And I think that's the difference there.
Yeah.
Totally.
You know,
I think
pieces it together.
Yeah. I think the thing with the general public too is that, especially if you live in a city, and I think this is maybe even exclusively to living in a big city, is that I think you can develop ADHD-like symptoms because of dopamine hyperstimulation. Then your brain reaches a level of homeostasis of expecting this much stimulation, and if you don't have it, you can now have like a dopamine deficiency that you're like doing ADHD like things. But the difference is that if you do a dopamine detox, as a normal person, you can reset that. If you do dopamine detox as a person with actual ADHD, you'll probably jump off a bridge. You know, so it's like again, to degrees. It's all to degrees. You know, and it's just like, again, people, especially in the city where we're always so stimulated. If you have a phone and a computer and TVs everywhere,
things are ringing. You have a job. You're an entrepreneur.
You have to go at 100 miles an hour to accomplish 600 things in order just to pay rent. Like, of course, you can like be in a stimulation like, you know, overload where you have a new level that's your normal, that's higher than say your body was normally supposed to be able to cope with.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that also affects people with ADHD too. But it's like, you know, it's you can't fix it the same way.
No.
You know, and yeah, it's just again, it's all to degrees. Like, you know, like I know for sure I have fairly severe ADHD. I look at my nephew and I'm like, I have nothing compared to him. Like, he is like, wow, you know, like to the point where like, you know, like if you put a gun to his head, he couldn't give you eye contact because he's like, you know, that's another thing with ADHD is when you're having a conversation. One of the things is that you do, especially if you're thinking of an idea, I'm literally doing it right now. If you're thinking of an idea, your eyes start to go like this because you're stimming on all these different things, because if you don't, because if you don't, then you can't focus on the idea you're trying to spit out.
I get so focused like with a neurotypical, sometimes I'm like, how much eye contact is normal, and then I'm so focused on
then you're thinking about that.
How much eye contact is normal? I'm gonna do a nod, and now and like, and then it's my turn to speak, and I'm like, I'm sorry, can you repeat all of that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They're like, you don't even care, and you're like, no, I was so focused on trying to look like I was focusing. And like eye contact with people I don't really know, I'm definitely uncomfortable. Like both of you, I know, like I feel like I look in your eyes way more than other people. Other people like, oh my, like what's going on? It's weird. It's weird.
It's a comfortability, I think, also with the looking around kind of thing. The way I've told it to myself even, like why I do that is because one time somebody told me about brain boxes, and your brain holds information in certain boxes in areas of your brain. And if you look to a certain point, that's where the information is stored. And that's
In your
also
brain,
with
yeah.
EDMR therapy, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but something like that. You can look at certain areas, and because where your eye tracks to, that is a connection point in your brain, and that's where the information is stored.
It's funny.
That's my little theory.
Because that's just a thing.
Because people use
do.
that for therapy. And they say, okay, look around the room now, and then whatever comes up to you, whatever comes. Okay, we're all
Let's
doing
try it.
therapy.
I'm like therapy time.
All
Okay.
right, here we go over therapist.
I'm like, am I looking around? I'm trying. How do I look around the room like a
How do
normal
I do
person?
this?
I don't know.
Yeah.
No, but your eyes track back and forth, and then when something comes to you, you know, usually you're dealing with trauma, therapy, or something in therapy. And then you display and you go through that experience, and you live that experience because your eyes have tracked, and that's a connection point in your brain where that information is stored and where that pinpoint is, where your eyeballs go to. So that's why I think we look around the room when we're trying to recall pieces of information. Personally.
Cool.
Yeah, that's how I've explained it. But I guess now today, as an entrepreneur, as a DJ, you're going out, you've got bookings, you've got things to manage, you've got your puppy at home, you've got your full life, you've got your job and everything like that. How have you found different ways to manage the ADHD with medication is what you're on right now? And then like completing all those little tasks. Like, do you have little things that help you?
Yeah. So definitely like, I have like 3 calendars. It sounds wild, but I have my Google Calendar for my phone. I have a giant whiteboard in my kitchen. It's the first thing I see of everything with a little to-do list next to it. Then I also have like kind of like a planner that's pretty detailed. And I use all 3 of these because I definitely find writing things down, color coding things really helps me. And for me, that really helps with like scheduling and planning, especially when managing a wild schedule, or right now my dog's wild pill schedule. Like that really, really helps. There's definitely times the ADHD and the mental health will win, and I can't do the things that I'm about to say. So this does not always work. But when I get that little bit of light to try and do the first steps, something else I'll do is maybe if I'm so overwhelmed, I'll try and make one massive list of absolutely everything, even if it's shower, go to girl, like every single thing, text this person back, reply, listen to your voicemail, like like that kind of stuff. And then I'll look and I'll be like, okay, what absolutely is 911 has to be done now? What can kind of be put away later? And that can help me sometimes break things down and kind of create my schedule. That's definitely something I try to do. I had another idea, but I left my brain already.
That's okay.
But yeah, I think another thing that helps when you start to leave a depressive slump, if you haven't left bed for days, but all of a sudden you're like, you have to want to try with mental health. There's no way to force it, but I literally in my written planner have a little box at the bottom, and it's little, you can check each day of the week. And these things are literally make my bed, shower, went outside, did some stretching, ate a meal, took my vitamins, worked on production. Like these things that are so simple that maybe a lot of people can just do normally. But for me, because when I've had a bad day and I've done nothing, I'm like, do you know what I did do? I made my bed and I had a shower, and that's all I did, but that's okay.
Yeah, those are accomplishments.
Do you find like with those little things, when you check them off your list proverbially or even literally, does that build momentum onto the next thing sometimes?
It can, or it can, if I backtrack and just think of all the things I actually did that day instead of beating myself up at the end of the night because I didn't produce an entire song in one day or get a top line vocal done or reply to all the emails. I'm like, do you know what I did do? I like raked my leaves. I gave my dog a bath. I did some laundry. I actually like ordered some groceries, little wins like that can sometimes show you like, actually, I'm doing okay. And it's okay that you didn't do everything. There's definitely times it can help the momentum. And there's days that feel borderline manic. And I'm like,
Yeah.
how did I paint the whole house and do all this in one day? There's some days and rebrand and do my website. Like,
totally.
Yeah.
that's the hyper focus.
Yeah, like two or 3 days you feel like a superstar, and then the next 2 days you're just like
Burn
head
out.
into a hole, and then the next day you're like, oh, I guess I'm normal again, but not superstar. It just goes like this sometimes.
It's these weird waves that you ride when.
Yeah.
And it sometimes comes up too, like you're saying. And what are those things? Do you kind of, on those days that things do come up and you do feel a little bit less motivated or depressed, or you're bogged down by that sort of thing, do you kind of have to take things off your plate? Do you reorganize things? Do you just be gentle on yourself?
Yeah, I'll try and pick the most important things that need to be done. If that's prepping for a show, I'll just focus on that. Maybe, I'll set a timer and be like, you have 30 minutes to reply to this email. You absolutely have to.
Yeah.
This is important. This is
The
business.
urgency, yeah.
So like trying to do that and just being okay with having a smaller amount, or being okay that there's going to be some days or weeks or periods of time that you're not going to be able to do it. Because if you are not mentally well and you are struggling or you are burnt out, you're not going to be bringing your best self to the workload. You're going to just continue picking away at yourself. So being kind to yourself and allowing that self-care, especially as a neurodivergent person.
Yeah. It's so key. It's so important.
Lean into your strength sometimes, like it's like, even if you're neurodivergent, that usually comes with many positives as well, that sometimes, you forget that there are things that you sometimes have advantages over neurodivergent people that they wouldn't have, and maybe it doesn't apply to everyday life, but sometimes you can be like, well, this makes me special and I do have value to offer to the world. And sometimes that'll be like, the gratitude of like, I didn't get a choice to be like this, but it did give me some certain gifts that, I'm thankful for, and try to lean into those as far as like building yourself up positively and trying to get out of depressive funks and like, and then you're like, oh, I guess, I guess I do have like some value, and then like I can be happy about being myself. And it's like, you know what, I'm going to,
it's a mental shift.
Now I'm like at this better space to be like, okay, I'm going to go to the gym, I guess. I should. If I'm so cool, maybe I should try to live longer by being healthy, whatever.
I got to contribute my music to the world, so I have to take care of myself.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just like, you just got to find different ways to, I guess, not cope, but like different ways to like just...
I think look at things differently too.
Yeah,
you stop beating yourself up for trying to be normal, trying to mask, trying to do all those things. And okay, well, I fully embrace that I have ADHD. I'm going to go with my burnout. I'm going to go with my wins. I'm going to go and count all the things that I've done for the day and feel proud and accomplished. And then the next day I can try again. And bringing that huge magnetism of all the things that you want to do into kind of more of the present moment, I feel like for me personally has given me a lot of peace.
I sometimes for me, and this is just for me, I do not recommend this to anybody. Okay?
This is not doctor's advice.
But for me, sometimes like if I'm having a bad day or two, the amount of like self-loathing and shame and self-hatred kind of fuels me to like get the fuck up and like do something with my life. Like channeling in that hatred and shame and self-pity and all that stuff, and just be like, you're such a loser. Why don't you do something with your life? And then I get to do something. It's just like sometimes it gets to that point.
I mean, just like, sometimes energy is energy.
Just energy is energy. Just like,
and it's good that you're fueling it into good
something.
Positive
like,
things,
it can go in another direction for sure. Like,
but making the choice to go up and do laundry.
It's like, again, you have to remember, like, okay, well, I do have self-worth and I do have value. I am being a piece of shit. Time to stop being a piece of shit.
All right, we reached
you have to want to. But and I think also just being honest with yourself and what you can handle. Like if I have appointments or something, I'm like, nope, that's all I can do that day. Someone asked me to hang out tomorrow. No, I was social today. I can't be social tomorrow. I have to be social on Friday. Like it's like I have to know that mentally and be honest with myself and You know,
That's huge.
if people,
That's hard.
yeah, if people
That's
are
so
like, oh,
hard.
stop by here before, I'm like, I don't have the time management skills to do that. And I know that.
Yeah.
So instead
If
of,
I have like, you
Yeah.
have like one thing on your day. It's like, I'm busy that whole day.
I'm busy that whole day. Yeah.
Because also you're anticipating that one thing. Anyways,
Yeah,
that's
it's
just
totally
me.
true.
I'm
Like,
like,
yeah.
I'm waiting. I'm
Yeah.
just waiting for the podcast all day, and then 6:30. All right, let's go. We're doing things.
You did have that whole day, but really, I was
Did
busy
I
the whole
really?
day.
No.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess going into the creativity and the vocals and actually making music and doing what you love and getting that stuff done and accomplishing, you've got a lot of vocals on tracks right now. Do you have stuff that you're working on, excited projects?
Yeah. So I definitely did a lot of vocals and collabs with people, which has been amazing. I kind of took a break from doing as many collabs as I was doing, and really started to just put energy and focus into my own sound and music. I had there's definitely people like in the industry, they don't always really want to like help you or teach you. And a lot of the music I'd make in the past, I'd write it, it'd almost be done. And then somebody I'd work with would take it, make it awesome, but I wouldn't understand how it went from this demo I'd written with all these sounds to sounding complete. And then it becomes a collab, or, you know, and then all of a sudden I'm just featured and I haven't fully, I was gate kept a lot of those final
But you didn't get a
tips.
Producer credit on it.
No,
kind of thing. Okay,
exactly.
yeah.
Even if the royalties, it's just, that's not the perception, which was frustrating. So you have to be, it's hard. Obviously, I don't work with a lot of those people anymore. And I'm still very careful, like on who I show my music to, because there's times I'll show my music to someone and someone's like, no, if you just pay me $100, I'll make this awesome. And I'm like, no, I don't want to pay you $100 to make it awesome. I want to make it awesome. You can sit next to me, but I'm not doing that anymore. So I've been really, I think also just to kind of find my own like sound again. And I really feel like a lot of the stuff I'm making is going back to kind of the root of what I was listening to on that Greyhound, but more today.
Zed, Adventure Club, Big Bass, 2016.
Just very vocal driven and a story. And I've really been learning a lot and really just nurturing the tracks that I've been working on. So, and I'm also not in a rush and like I want them to be ready and I want these. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
You want to see your babies grow and, you know, flourish and then finish and then have a completed thing to give out to the world and have that presenting.
And just being very selective on who am I going to reach out for feedback to? Because sometimes people will just take your projects and run and and I hate that.
Or give you advice. We were just talking about this in the last podcast of giving you advice that really applies to them. And it's great for their career and their song and their sound, but it doesn't necessarily apply to you and what might work best for you and your brand and your sound and where you want to go too. So even taking advice and kind of like little bits and pieces, I think is good. You know, and taking what you need, leaving the rest behind.
Definitely.
You know? Yeah.
And I think I've been very lucky to have made really, really good connections and friendships over the years with people who I am the one in the producer seat. If they're giving me feedback and advice now, they're like, no, you do it. They're pushing me to do it instead of pushing me aside and just click. And I'm like, what? Okay, cool.
5 buttons later and all of a sudden
it's longer, but you know what I mean? Like, it's so really pushing myself that way.
Pushing yourself forward, and your book being booked all over Van City. That's exciting. You do the corporate side as well as the DJ underground side. That's a really interesting dynamic, and I don't see a lot of people doing that.
Oh my goodness. I mean, it's
I mean, the track list is obviously number one, but what kind of things do you go into each gig with the mentality of?
For corporate or for...
Yeah, the difference between corporate and then underground.
So corporate and weddings, it's very client dependent. Either there's people who are going to email or talk to me and maybe they have a very particular taste. And I'm able to do that. It's a challenge. I'm like, cool, challenge. Like we can do this, but not this, or you're into some kind of alternative mountain folk I've never heard of. Cool. Get to hyper focus, make a dinner playlist on that. Cool. So it can be really fun. There's clients who, they really want to work with me and they're like, hey, we don't really know that much. We don't really like anything. We heard some remixes. We like that style. We just want everyone to have fun.
Mhm.
Great.
Mhm.
Also, there's kind of this new era of ravers getting married and they
Right.
want drum and bass.
Yeah.
What?
I had Bride come
So
up to me,
cool.
I'm ready for drum and bass now. I probably had like 3 weddings pre-request some drum and bass this
Mhm.
past year, which is really new.
Wow.
Houses
Interesting.
come in, you know, throwing some cool Sandstorm remixes, Avicii, like that's
Fisher
been kind of
losing it. Let's go.
yeah, fun remixes has always been fun and definitely something I think a lot of particularly wedding clients will reach out to me for because they
Mhm.
know that I trained in opera.
Mhm.
I love R&B. I go to like Kalani concerts. I go to Alicia
Yeah.
Keys concerts, but then I also love bass and I love loungy
Mhm.
house. I love so many different styles
Mhm.
that I genuinely do love curating
Mhm.
and I love themes.
Yeah.
Like if people are like, oh, we're doing a Gemini theme or we're doing like an ocean theme, like I get into it. I'm like, this
Mhm.
is going to be fun. So
yeah.
it keeps it interesting for me. And I think not a lot of people can do that, I don't think, but I think
Yeah.
probably because of my ADHD brain, I'm like, ooh,
Mhm.
I love all of this.
Yeah, you
Cool.
can collect and curate and
The
hyper.
jack
I'm
of
in
all
it.
trades, but in a good way, kind of thing.
Yeah,
It's
that
fun.
really is putting your talents to use. Because a lot of people will get annoyed. A lot of DJs will get annoyed at this DJ request. Oh, can you play my song right now? You know,
Yeah.
I need this particular thing. But even you curating that kind of playlist and having an overall vibe, you know, and you're giving that to them.
Totally.
That's
And
cool.
yeah, there's always going to be somebody annoying requesting stuff sometimes, but like,
Even at underground shows.
yeah, sometimes you're like, do you know where you like
Yeah.
are? Yeah,
Yeah.
like that's just how it is, unfortunately. And I do sometimes feel like when you are a little bit more femme or female presenting, sometimes people can be a lot more pushier to you.
Mhm.
So that can be like challenging as
Yeah.
well. But
Yeah.
I think, you know, I try to discuss for especially corporate and private events in advance. I'm like, okay, so if like people are like, do you want me to take requests? Would you
Mhm.
rather that it's just me with the songs that you know, the few songs you gave me and these styles and we just let people enjoy, or I have them write it down on a clipboard? Why?
Mhm.
Can't handle people yelling in my ear.
Yeah.
There's too many sounds. I'm trying to focus. If people distract my focus, it's too much. So I
Yeah.
have people write it down. It's just
Mhm.
and again, an ADHD kind of coping mechanism that I use. People can write it down. I can cross it off. And I tell usually, well, my preferred way is like, if I see songs that are fitting the vibe, like, you know, if I'm
I'll put it
playing
in,
a
yeah.
shanty and someone put Biggie, I'm like, okay, cool. That works.
Excellent.
But if
Yeah.
somebody is requesting AC/DC and we're playing
Yeah.
deep house, I might be like,
We'll wait on that one.
Yeah.
maybe not right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we get there sometime in the next 3
2
weeks,
hours.
we'll get to it. You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's just how I
Oops, I
handle it.
forgot.
And I
Yeah.
think, because I have that diversity, it keeps it interesting. It keeps it
Yeah.
I
fun.
think the thing too is that when you're playing a show where you're like at a club or like your featured artist, you're playing your brand, your sound, right? And when you're hired there for that. Whereas that can be the case at an event or a wedding, but when you go there, you're getting hired for a service, right? And how well you could complete that service. And the people there will be like, she did a great job at this service, and now I'll hire her for my version of that, like as a wedding or a corporate gig or, you know, some sort of special event or whatever. And if you approach it as a different thing, you can still have your sound and your flavor and your brand at the events, but there's more, you're kind of fitting into that puzzle piece. Whereas instead of at a club or a venue, they know who your picture is already done and they want that.
Yeah.
Like, give me this picture.
Yeah.
I want that here.
Yeah.
Whereas at the events, they can see that picture and they're like, we want to fit this picture into our event.
Yeah.
And somehow that has to reshape and mold to be both things or more this thing than that thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah,
which is exactly
absolutely.
why
It's a-
like I keep the brands separate.
Separate, yeah.
And yeah, it's actually crazy. 2 years ago, I had a bride who sent me a message on Instagram. She's like, can you please play some of your original electronic music at my wedding? And I did. And I did at the end, and it was so fun
So
to kind of bring
cool.
that element in.
Yeah.
But again, specific people. I'm not doing
Yeah.
that at just every booking, but
Yeah, you're
it
not
is.
assuming that you're going
No.
to show up and play some like.
Yeah,
whatever.
it's
that.
funny. It's
Yeah.
like it feels like Hannah Montana, like this crossover of two. I'm like, who am I? What am I?
Morgan
Yeah.
Lily versus Mink-See.
Yeah, who
you
am I?
know?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's really fun
Yeah.
either way, and
Yeah.
it keeps my life very interesting and unpredictable. Some periods are crazy,
Mhm.
go, and then you're not going to hear from me for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
and then,
Yeah.
And then
Well, you
I'll
could
come
go from a corporate gig and then, bringing your sound into the underground or to the club scene or, that sort of thing. How do you approach the club gigs then? And
back.
the brand, the people that want you and your sound and your
Yeah.
vocals and you singing over top of them?
Yeah, I think it really depends if if it's local, like that's going to be a little bit of a different set versus if you're direct support for a specific artist. So
Mhm.
usually I'll try to tailor like that sound a little bit. It really depends gig to gig.
Venue
If there's
even, yeah.
Mhm.
a house show that I'm booked for, then yes, I'm going to go through my house songs, be like, which ones am I going to play? Is it appropriate for me to sing live before this artist?
Mhm.
Or is it not? If it's
Right.
just me headlining somewhere in event, great, cool.
Or even a
Or-
festival, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if
Yeah.
it's like, maybe if I am direct before some, maybe I wouldn't. Who knows? But again, it's
Yeah.
hard to know. Every situation's so different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
You don't have a blanket rule.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
if like it's drum and bass, I'm gonna be like, okay, where are the halftime tracks I've been making? Like, so
Mhm.
it's really gonna be trying to fit in what I have mixed with other things and that show and the time and the lineup. And I'm always prepping multi vibes. I have what I think I'm gonna play, but I'm like, what if the person before me is Excision?
Yeah.
What if the person is like
Adventure Club.
Adventure
House.
Club or like, like
Minimal Tech House.
exactly, like
You
something
never
very
know.
melodic and
Yeah.
like
Just
Casablanca.
totally
That's
different.
going to be a very different. You just don't know where you're going to be,
Yeah.
and you don't know if the
Yeah.
crowd is going to just want to be vibing and continue, or if they're just going to want to rage. Like,
Mm.
so just being prepped with a bunch of vibes in mind.
Yeah.
But definitely when I do have like originals and stuff that I want to play, I kind of have a little plan.
Mhm.
Because it's a lot to like mix it, get the mic ready, go interact with people, and then run back. Like, so, I'll have a few,
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
the things that I know are going to blend into that. And then I can
Mhm.
run back and just know that something's ready to go.
Yes, exactly. You've got
Mhm.
everything set up so that you can go and do
Yeah.
your live vocals. That's cool.
Definitely. I feel like
Yeah.
either one can bring a lot of anxiety. I think for prepping, generally for clubs, I kind of know a little bit more what the vibe's going to be. Like if I'm
Mhm.
opening for a specific artist, I know what their sound is. I
Mhm.
think with corporate, like there is anxiety, but it's different. And I
Mhm.
think it's because I'm walking into a room with 100, 200 people who don't know me,
Mhm.
Yeah.
but they all know I'm there. I'm running the sound, and that's a lot. That's a whole other thing. You don't know if
You have
this
to
is
be
a
lot more
friendly crowd,
adaptable.
Yeah.
if these are a dancey crowd, if this crowd hates each other, they
Mhm.
love each other. Like this is
Yeah.
like 200 strangers. Maybe you've only met the organizer, or like the bride and
Wedding
groom,
planner
or
or whatever.
So you have to get in, read the crowd very quickly, and then kind of go off there and bounce between a couple things.
most crowds are awesome.
Mhm.
Sadly, there just takes one person to not, but like you never know, and that can bring
Yeah.
anxiety. And I think a lot of
Mhm.
people don't understand that. Is
Yeah.
like
That is nerve-wracking to
Yeah.
walk into.
it's a lot, especially when
Yeah.
you do have ADHD and you're like, I'm trying to read and mask every single person's energy so that
Yeah.
I can curate this day perfectly, so that way will last from ceremony all the way to the end.
And if I make one mistake, I'm going to kill myself. It's just like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
really you beat yourself up for it later.
Yeah.
I do that so often. Even if
Yeah.
my set's going pretty good, I'm like, oh, those 5 seconds. I'll
Mhm.
remember that for the rest of my life.
Yeah,
Thank
exactly.
you.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
And I think, with clubs, it's still a lot of pressure too, in a different way. Because I'm like, a lot of the people out, they know music, they know
Mhm.
transitions,
Totally.
they know if I
Exactly.
fuck
It's,
up.
it's a different.
Yeah.
It's a different pressure for sure.
So it's
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it's like with a club set, you're like, the pressure is to be perfect for that hour or two, whereas at the event, it's I need to manage this event in a fluid situation for the next 5 hours. Who knows,
Mhm.
right? Like
Mhm.
weddings could be a long time.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, do I also have to like talk on the mic to be like, hey, we're doing this and come back in half an hour, blah, blah, blah. Like, is that part of your job too? Like all these other things.
Yeah.
It's just,
Occasionally.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
that, like sometimes it's funny, like,
Yeah.
being someone ADHD, like I'll like
Yeah.
switch up words, and I'll just have to go with it and be like,
Yeah.
that's how it is.
Yeah.
Like,
You hired me. I'm
Yeah.
still a human at the end of the day,
The
The
not
nice,
a
thing,
jukebox.
the nice thing about that too is that, especially if you're just working locally, if you're a club DJ, it's hard to make money
Mm.
here. Like we were just talking about this the other day. It's like, even if you're the busiest club DJ in the city and you're working let's say you're working 2 club nights a week, which is insane. Think about that.
Also
Think about
borderline impossible.
But I'm just saying, even hypothetically, you're playing
Yeah.
2 club nights a weekend.
Mhm.
You know, maybe if you're crazy, you're doing it after hours as well. That's probably $500.
Yeah.
You know,
Doesn't pay the bills.
if you're not doing anything else that week, you're broke.
Mhm.
You know, if you don't have a 9 to 5 or some other income stream, you're broke.
Mhm.
You know, whereas like if you're doing what you're doing, you can work Monday to Friday as well. Like, you know, I can do an event here or this, that, whatever. You can, or like one gig will pay, you know, $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,500 if it's a whole day thing, like something like that.
Yeah.
And that's like actual real money, you know.
Yeah.
And it's, even though it's way more work per hour, amount of hours you're doing as compared to 1 hour,
Yeah.
but it's like that's a real living. You don't have to have an office job or a serving job or
I
whatever at the
think-
same time.
People don't always realize too. It's like, yeah, okay, so I'm doing one big event a week, maybe average,
Yeah.
you know. But the other side of that, what is my Monday into Thursdays?
Yeah.
I'm handling my own finances, my own invoices, 2
Totally.
different brands, 2 different websites, 2 or 3 different emails if you include my personal.
Yeah.
And then also music for each account, consults with clients, writing contracts, talking to wedding planners,
Marketing.
and then the whole marketing, the
Yeah.
TikTok, the Instagram, the Facebook.
Yeah.
So,
It's a full-time
and then you
job.
need to also prep what you're doing that weekend. So,
Absolutely.
so it's very much like feels full time.
It is,
And I
yeah,
think people
absolutely.
think, oh, you're so lucky. You have all this free time. I'm like, I have flexibility
Yeah.
to like
I don't have to do it.
arrange my schedule,
Yeah.
but the list is never going to be done.
Exactly.
No,
Yeah.
you're essentially an entrepreneur. You're building your own business.
Yeah.
And the business and the commodity is you and
It's
your
me.
sound.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of pressure sometimes. You're like,
Yeah, totally.
you're like, it's me.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm my
have to be
own
there.
boss. I'm my own star.
Yeah.
I'm
Don't
my
get
own
sick days.
producer.
No, I'm
No.
like, they book you. It's so different than another job where you can just be
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm just gonna call in sick. Like, no,
Yeah,
I've got to do
there's
it.
somebody there to back you up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no next level person that's relying on you. It's just you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which especially since being on like the ADHD journey is I'm not trying to take on every single booking I'm offered, corporate or club or anything. I'm really trying to do quality over quantity because
And stuff that fits you
yeah.
better.
Because if I am working to the point that I was, especially pre-COVID, I'm going to be burnt out. I'm going to be tired. That means I'm not going to be creating. That means
Yeah.
I'm not going to have energy to update my website or post pictures or text, clients back or reply to make meetings. Like I'm going to be so burnt out, and that's just going to be a domino effect.
Totally. And just
Yeah.
because you're busy now doesn't mean like because you didn't handle all those details, there could be now like you didn't set yourself up for the next 4 months, and now you're not only burnt out, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah.
All these things need to be balanced and managed. It's a
hard.
full-time job.
And
Even though it's not set 9 to 5, it doesn't mean you're not working 8 hours a day. It's
Yeah,
just maybe it's
it's-
3 hours here and 4 hours there and 1 hour here and 2 hours there. It's like
oh my gosh.
with breaks in
Yeah.
between or like things in between, whatever, right? It's
Yeah.
like maybe today it was 10 to 5. The next day it's 2 p.m. to midnight. Like who knows?
Yeah, like just accepting like my brain capacity to do my best work is I'm going to burn out sooner than other people.
Yeah.
And I have to, that's why I take less bookings
Yeah.
and I'm going to be more picky.
Be more picky,
And,
yeah.
and yeah, so it's just how it is.
I mean, that's kind of on the flip side, as bad as that is, the flip side is that you do enjoy the gigs that you have. You do have time for music
Yeah.
and that
Keeps
you
you
do
motivated
have,
too.
and
Yeah.
you really enjoy those things a little bit more.
Totally. It gives me a
Yeah.
lot less anxiety going into bookings, and I'm like, I've talked to them, or I know this show, I've studied there. When I've had the time to really like feel confident, I feel better.
Yeah.
I think the work is better. I think I do a better job.
Sky's the limit.
And then that's hopefully just going to attract other bookings or clients that
The right bookings
are the right
clients,
vibe
yeah.
for me.
Yeah. They're all gonna love you. So I guess in the next couple of years, that's kind of your direction. Just keep on going in that producing, corporate, DJing.
For now, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Is that kind of your direction?
I think so. I've been actually doing like the corporate and the wedding just as long as the clubbing, maybe like 6 months more, honestly. So it's honestly been like 7 years of both.
Wow.
And I think a big reason to just really do quality over quantity. So I really have that time to really invest in myself and my own sound and my music, which has always been number one. From the beginning, it was always the music. It was not, I'm so happy that my job is still music and I'm able to just listen to Aretha Franklin and like that's still teaching me stuff about song structure, melodies, riffs, sounds. Like it's always teaching
New
me.
inspirations too.
Yeah.
Always teaching me.
Definitely.
There's so many times like a client does love electronic or something and I hear a song and I'm like, oh my gosh, like
Yeah.
the selenium's making me cry. Like I didn't think I liked this, but I'm like, all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh. Like so
and you have that
you
shared
learn
moment.
things. Yeah. So I think it's really going to be working on myself, my brand, my sound, my mental health, and just like continuing on this journey. I know I have a lifetime of unhealed trauma that also needs to be worked on eventually, but it's kind of like, okay, one thing at a time, we'll get there.
You've got your feet on the ground.
Yeah.
You know where you want to go. We've
think
got the reins in both
It
hands.
just does help so much when you have the diagnosis and you can identify things now, and it allows you to catch things faster. You know, instead of being like, oh, I don't know what to do now, you kind of know, okay, well, this is this. If I do this, I can do this. It just makes getting out of the ruts quicker. I think I find once I start to figure it out. So where would you say you visualize yourself 2 years from now?
It's so hard. I feel like a lot of my career, it's just kind of happened.
Yeah, right.
And I'm along for the ride.
Yeah.
I think definitely in the next 2 years, I want to have my original music out and ready to share. That's really my sound and my story. I think for years, I think my whole life, like music 100% has been my therapy, whether it's crying in bed to like the fray as a child, like whatever. Like I 100% do not think I would have made it this far with undiagnosed learning disabilities and mental health disorders, like without music. I would 100% probably be dead without it. So it's always been my therapy. It's always been my passion. And that's always going to be number one for me. And really writing those lyrics for my own sounds is going to be very important. It doesn't mean I'm not going to do collabs again one day. It just means right now, like that is who I'm trying to grow, because now I have tools and I'm not going to be consistently battling my brain the same way every single day. There's still days I still do, but like, but it's not as intense. And I'm starting to learn the skills to hopefully not be my own worst enemy. And
and
it's very hard when it's your own brain
Yeah.
blocking you, but also your brain wanting to do all these things. You're like, what is Leia? It's a lot.
Yeah. That resistance. But now it's kind of dissipating a little bit and you have hope for the future.
Yeah.
You know, stuff to look forward to.
Yeah. I
It's
just
exciting.
want to continue to share my story and meet other people, and hopefully I just want to spread good energy. I want my shows to have good energy. I want them to be very accepting. And I'm a big advocate in all of that. So that is a big thing.
I'll tell you a story. When I first saw you perform, I was like, this girl, her energy just exploded the entire room. It was Kumo.
Okay.
And that was my very first gig ever, like professional gig.
Yeah.
And at the Hollywood. And I was like, oh, I'm so excited to see her. I've never seen her. The girl with the donuts. I'm so happy. And so it's just seeing you on stage, just interact with those audiences and like have that connection and bringing those sounds, you know. I think sky's the limit for you. And
thank you.
You know, we're excited to see where you go.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll see.
Many.
It's been I think it's an honor to be able to provide a platform that you can share this particular journey and these difficult topics about, you know, your mental
so thank
conditions,
you.
illnesses, and things
Very
like that.
Of course.
You know, it's you know, as most people that have watched us know, that almost everybody we've interviewed, we have long-standing relationships with. So the conversations have been quite easy and free-flowing and comfortable. So
easy, beautiful.
yeah, you know, but we've also, you know, like, I mean, we both met Koji for basically the first time.
Yeah.
And that conversation was just as easy and free-flowing too. So it's been
like
really
having
fun.
a platform too where you're like able to come on here, you know, and give you guys more content on, you know, stuff that isn't even
Life,
related
yeah.
to music,
But
which
it
I think is
is-
such
it
an
is-
honor
it's-
for
yeah,
you to
it's
be able
life,
to come
it's-
here and do this.
You know, without the knowledge that, you know, you've given to the people that might be watching this now or in the future,
Mm-hmm.
they might not know that these are things that they also go through, you know, like as people, like the whole point of a lot of these conversations is providing information for people that are going through a similar journey that we're all going through, you know, and
Yeah.
just
Mhm.
You
being
can
able
relate
to
to so many different
identify
people.
and, you know, just kind of like, you know, relate to what's going on instead of it just being some pie in the sky thing that, you know, these people are doing it because they're unique and special and
Mhm.
I'm not. Whereas like we're all humans. We all
Yeah.
have the same conditions, the same obstacles, the same dreams, the same inspirations. It's all very
Absolutely.
accessible
Yeah.
if that's what you really want to do, like
Yeah, what one human can do, another human can do within
Mhm.
reason.
with
Yeah,
sacrifice
you know?
and dedication.
Yeah.
You could it's
And a lot of learning.
the saying is that anybody can do anything, but you can't do everything.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Like you gotta sometimes
Yeah.
if you want something more
That's
heavy,
true.
you gotta just pick it and that is the only thing that matters in your life.
Mm.
Yes, you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe not the best. You won't be like say you want to be a hockey player, but you're not athletic naturally and you don't have good hand-eye coordination. But if you literally worked on it all day, every day, maybe
Yeah.
you're not a hockey player, but you could be a hockey coach, hockey trainer,
Yeah.
or you could play in an amateur league and still make a living.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're not the top all-star in the world. I mean, this just applies. I'm using a sports analogy, but it's just
Yeah.
it's with anything. If you sacrifice and dedicate, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and try to educate and do the actual best that you possibly could.
Stay
even
committed to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is
Yeah.
definitely.
I think
how
people
committed
who
you are.
like have probably followed me very closely over the
Mhm.
past couple of years, they probably know like I make these weird depressed tweets
Mhm.
and oh my gosh, now people know I have Twitter. It's like a
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
dark
Yeah.
web of my secrets there. But
Yeah.
like even Facebook just being like, hey, I hope everyone's okay, or if you're sad, and I'm usually posting those when I'm sad. And
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think kind of even how your perception was when you first saw me. Yeah, when I'm on stage, I lose all of that. Everything I'm
Mhm.
feeling, it goes into this performance. I need the audience as much as they need me. They've saved
Mhm.
me too. And those
Mhm.
connections mean so much. And there are like people that I've only really known through shows or social media will talk about mental health and make sure we're okay. But I think on a bigger scale, like, yeah, like I have this performance and it's very go, go, go and donuts, blah, blah, blah. But like
Yeah.
the other side of that is there's dark.
Mhm.
There isn't a high without a low.
Yes.
Totally.
So just as
So
bubbly and
true.
happy and blah, blah, blah and have it
Yeah.
together,
Mhm.
there's a whole other side. And that's okay.
It's
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
real
yeah.
life.
It's
Yeah.
real life.
It's everybody.
You're human.
Yeah.
You know?
And
Yeah.
I don't want to like, I just don't want people to think that it's just, oh my God, yeah, just magically everything just came together.
Sunshine and rainbows. No.
No.
Yeah.
No.
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 Sometimes
not
I'm
for us.
like, you have to do your makeup and stop crying and get to the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and then once your makeup's on, you can't cry. Like, you just gotta go.
Yeah.
Like,
Not allowed.
Yeah.
No,
Not
totally.
allowed.
Yeah.
That determination and that focus, I think, will bring you so far too. You know,
Yeah.
no matter what.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
thank you.
Of course,
Yeah,
thank you
thank you.
for
Thank you.
taking on a lot of that.
Thank you for being
the-
here.
Oh, it
This
was a
is
gift,
amazing.
yeah.
And the
Yeah.
comfort
Conversation.
pillow I've just
Yeah.
been like holding the whole time.
You have to
Yeah.
have it.
I
That's
need-
why
I'm
so
like,
many
I need
different
something
things.
to hold.
I'm trying to like grab my thigh, and so I'm not like going like this the whole time, or this the whole time, or this the whole time.
I know. I'm
We're
like, do
working
people
on it.
normally like?
I swear, I
lot of
struggle
people do.
watching the replays of these because I'm just like so fidgety, and I notice all of it, and I'm watching. I'm just like, oh god.
You're amazing.
Yeah.
This is why we're all creative and there's all light and dark and beautiful.
I'm gonna have to get
and
some like
everything.
shibari rope and tie myself down for the podcast. Okay,
That's a-
Mason's tied down. We can start.
That's a different
That's
website.
yeah.
That's a different website that you guys should all go follow. No, I'm just kidding. We don't have that website, but please follow Mink-See. Please follow Maze.
Don't follow me, please.
Well,
Don't.
please. Please follow her. She's
Yeah.
got an amazing journey. We're excited to see her grow, have her back on the pod, and maybe a year's time we'll see how things are. In the meantime,
Who
please
knows?
subscribe.
Yeah.
Who
Share.
knows?
Well,
Share.
maybe less. Well, maybe we'll have her next week. Who knows?
Who knows?
We
Stay
actually do know,
tuned.
but you never know.
Stay tuned is what
Yeah.
I'm saying. Come to the lives every
Yeah.
single Wednesday. We drop episodes on Tuesday. But until that time, thank you and be safe out there. We love you very much.
Or stay dangerous. You never know.
That's up to you.
Yeah.
No professional advice was given in this show.
Oh my God, yeah.